It's always raining when something finds its way to my desk. Not the cinematic kind of rain, either. Just the steady, relentless drizzle that soaks through your coat and seeps into your bones. My desk is a mess, as usual. Coffee rings, half-read case files, a cracked mug with a chipped handle. I was halfway through sorting a stack of old reports when I noticed the envelope. It wasn't there a moment before. No return address, just a single line in blocky, faded type. Goler Clan. 1988. I know what you're thinking. You've heard the stories. Maybe you've even watched the documentaries, read the articles, or swapped rumors in the darker corners of the internet. But if you think you know the Goler story, you don't. Not really. Not the way I do. Not the way I'm about to show you. I shouldn't be sharing this, but you deserve to know. That's what I keep telling myself, anyway. The file was handed to me by someone I trust. Someone who's seen more than their share of things that don't make sense. They pressed it into my hands with a look I can't forget, and a warning I can't ignore. Some things are better left buried. Their voice was barely above a whisper, but it echoed in my head for days. I sat there, staring at the envelope, feeling the weight of it. It was heavier than it should have been, as if the paper inside was soaked with something thicker than ink. My fingers hesitated at the seal. I thought about all the other cases I've covered, all the nights I've spent chasing shadows and secrets. None of them felt like this. None of them made my skin crawl before I even opened the file. You're here now, so I guess you want to know what's inside. I'll warn you, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. There are things in this world that don't want to be found, and stories that punish you for listening. But you're still here, aren't you? Good, because what's inside this file is more disturbing than anything I've ever shared. And it's time someone finally told the truth. Let me take you back to where it all began. Before the headlines, before the world looked away. If you drive far enough into the backwoods of Nova Scotia, the world starts to thin out. The roads turn to gravel, then to mud, then to nothing at all. Trees crowd in, thick and ancient, swallowing the sky. It's the kind of place where you can scream and no one will hear you. Except maybe the wind, and even that's not a guarantee. That's where the Goler Clan made their home, tucked away on a patch of land so remote it barely had a name. The Goler homestead was a sagging shack, patched with tar paper and rusted tin, surrounded by a tangle of blackberry brambles and the skeletons of old cars. Chickens scratched in the dirt, and a pair of goats wandered loose, chewing on whatever they could find. The air always smelled faintly of wood smoke and something sour, like milk left out too long. It was a place out of time, and not in a good way. People in the nearest town, if you could call it that, spoke of the Golers with a mix of pity and unease. They keep to themselves, old Mrs. McInnes would say, her voice dropping to a hush. Best not to go poking around up there. The postman, who only delivered as far as the main road, once told a reporter, "I've seen the kids, barefoot in the snow. They don't look right, you know? Like they're half wild." Even the local social worker, a woman named Ruth, admitted, "I tried to check in once. They wouldn't let me past the gate. The children just stared at me, not a word, not a smile. Gave me chills. But there were things the townsfolk never said out loud. Not in the diner, not in the church, not even after a few drinks at the Legion. Some secrets even the wind wouldn't carry. There were stories, of course. There always are. Whispers about what went on behind those sagging walls, about the strange cries that sometimes drifted down the valley at night, about the way the children seemed to multiply, and yet no one ever saw a new face, about the bruises, the hollow eyes, the way they flinched from a stranger's touch. Yet, if you looked from a distance, you might have seen something almost innocent. The children, there were always so many, would play in the mud, chasing each other through the weeds, their laughter echoing off the trees. They built forts from scrap wood, caught frogs in the creek, and made up games with rules only they understood. For a moment, you could almost forget the squalor, the hunger, the way their clothes hung off their bones. Almost. But then you'd see the way they watched the woods, eyes darting to the shadows as if expecting something. Or someone. to step out. You'd notice how they never strayed too far from the shack, how their games always ended before dusk. And if you listen closely, you might hear the way their laughter died when the wind changed, replaced by a silence so heavy it pressed against your chest. The adults were a different story. Hard, suspicious, and quick to anger. They spoke in low voices, glancing over their shoulders, as if afraid of being overheard by more than just neighbors. The men worked odd jobs when they could get them, but mostly they stayed on the land, hunting, trapping, doing whatever it took to survive. The women kept to themselves, eyes downcast, hands always busy. No one ever saw them in town unless they had to be there, and even then, they moved like ghosts. It was a world apart, a place where time and kindness had both run thin. But in 1988, everything changed. Or so we thought. It started with a phone call. Anonymous, shaky, the kind of voice that sounds like it's been waiting years to speak. "You need to check the Goler place," the caller said. "There's children. They're not right." The line went dead before anyone could ask for a name. Maybe it was a neighbor, maybe a family member, maybe just someone who'd finally had enough of the silence. Either way, it was enough to send a pair of social workers and a constable up the winding, rutted track to the Goler homestead. The first thing they noticed was the quiet. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes your skin prickle. No birdsong, no laughter, just the creak of the wind in the trees and the crunch of boots on frozen mud. The shack looked even smaller up close, its windows smeared with grime, the door hanging crooked on its hinges. The constable knocked, called out, waited. No answer. He tried again, louder this time, and the only reply was the distant bleat of a goat. They forced the door. The smell hit them first. A sour, fetid stench that made one of the social workers gag. Inside, the air was thick and close, heavy with the scent of unwashed bodies, rotting food, and something else, something metallic and old. The light was dim, filtering through torn curtains and cracks in the walls. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust. That's when they saw the children. There were more than anyone expected. Huddled together on filthy mattresses, wrapped in threadbare blankets, eyes wide and unblinking. Some were so small they looked like shadows, others older but just as thin, their faces hollow and pale. One girl clutched a broken doll, her fingers white-knuckled around its neck. A boy sat in the corner, rocking back and forth, muttering to himself in a language no one recognized. A rescuer later said, "I've seen a lot in my time, but nothing like that. They looked at us like we were ghosts. Or maybe they were the ghosts, and we were the intruders." Another remembered. One of the little ones kept repeating something, over and over. I couldn't make it out. It didn't sound like English. It didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard. The relief of finding them alive was short-lived. The horror of what they'd endured was written on their bodies. Bruises, scars, old burns, the kind of wounds that don't heal clean. Their hair was matted, their skin streaked with dirt and sores. Some flinched at the touch of a gentle hand. Others didn't react at all, as if they'd forgotten what kindness felt like. The adults were nowhere to be found. The rescuers searched the shack, the outbuildings, the woods beyond, but there was no sign of the parents. Just the children, silent and watchful, as if waiting for something to happen. The social workers tried to coax them outside, promising food, warmth, safety. Most followed, shuffling into the pale daylight, blinking against the brightness. A few had to be carried, limp and unresisting. Outside, the world seemed impossibly big. The children squinted at the sky, at the trees, at the strangers who spoke in soft, urgent voices. One girl, maybe 6 or 7, stared at the tree line and whispered, "It's still there." No one knew what she meant. Another child, the boy from the corner, began to cry. Not loud, but a thin, keening wail that set everyone's nerves on edge. What they found in that shack was only the beginning. The headlines would call it a rescue, a miracle, a tragedy. But the truth was messier, darker. The children were alive, yes, But something had followed them out of those woods. Something no one could name. And one child kept repeating a phrase no one could understand, a phrase that would haunt the investigators for years. The world watched, horrified and fascinated, as the story unfolded. But the real nightmare began after the headlines faded. They said the children were safe. They lied. In the weeks after the rescue, the Goler children became a spectacle. News vans lined the muddy roads, reporters jostling for a glimpse, a quote, a photograph. Headlines screamed about the lost children of Nova Scotia, about a family's dark secret exposed. The world wanted a story with a beginning, a middle, and a neat, redemptive end. But real life doesn't work that way, and neither did this. The children were split up, parceled out to foster homes across the province. For their own good, the officials said. A fresh start. I remember watching a press conference, the Minister of Social Services standing stiffly at a podium, reading from a script. We are committed to providing these children with the care and support they need to heal and thrive. The cameras flashed, the crowd murmured, and somewhere behind the scenes, the children waited in borrowed clothes, clutching donated toys, eyes darting to every shadow. The first foster family tried to make it work. We thought love would be enough, Mrs. Hargrove told a local paper, her voice brittle. But they wouldn't sleep through the night. They'd wake up screaming, or just stand at the window, staring into the dark. Sometimes they'd talk to each other in that strange language. Sometimes they wouldn't talk at all. She paused, twisting her wedding ring. We found our dog dead one morning. No marks, just gone. After that, we asked the agency to move them. Caseworkers cycled through, each one more hopeful than the last, each one leaving a little more defeated. They're not like other kids, one whispered to me over coffee, her hands trembling. It's like they're waiting for something, or someone. I don't know how to reach them. Another, more blunt, some of them are just empty, like the lights are on, but nobody's home. The media circus moved on, hungry for fresher tragedies. The public lost interest. The children became files in a cabinet, names on a list, problems to be managed. But the problems didn't go away. They just changed shape. One by one, the children started to disappear from the system. Some ran away, slipping out of locked windows and bolted doors. Others simply vanished. No note, no trace, just an empty bed in the morning. The official line was always the same. We are doing everything we can to locate them. But the truth was, no one really wanted to look too closely. Not after what happened to the first social worker who tried. Her name was Ruth, the same one who'd tried to visit the Goler homestead years before. She was found in her car at the edge of the woods, engine running, eyes wide open. The coroner called it a heart attack, but the look on her face said otherwise. The last entry in her notebook read, "They're not alone out there." I started to keep my own file, piecing together scraps of information, rumors, and half-truths. I called foster parents, tracked down caseworkers, even tried to talk to a few of the children who'd stayed in the system. Most wouldn't speak to me. The ones who did seemed altered. One girl, now a teenager, told me, "It's not over. It's never over." She wouldn't say more. The promise of safety was a lie. The world wanted to believe the children had been saved, that the nightmare was over. But the reality was messier, crueler. The trauma followed them, a shadow that stretched across every new home, every new beginning. And the system, built on good intentions and red tape, was never enough to keep the darkness out. But it was what happened to the youngest that still keeps me up at night. Anna was the smallest of the Goler children and the quietest. She was 5 when they found her, curled up beneath a moth-eaten blanket, thumb in her mouth, eyes too old for her face. In the first days after the rescue, she barely spoke. When she did, it was in whispers, as if afraid the words themselves might draw something closer. Her first foster family tried to coax her out of her shell. They bought her a pink dress, a stuffed rabbit, a set of colored pencils, and a stack of blank paper. She liked to draw, Mrs. Hargrove told me, her voice softening. At first, it was just flowers, stick figures, the sun. But then the pictures started to change. I've seen those drawings. I wish I hadn't. The early ones are innocent enough. Crude houses, smiling faces, a yellow sun with long, spidery rays. But then, slowly, the colors darken. The houses become crooked, the faces lose their smiles. The sun turns red, then black. And always, in the background, there's something else. A shape in the trees, a shadow with too many arms, eyes like empty holes. Anna's foster parents brought the drawings to her therapist, a woman named Dr. LeBlanc. She kept detailed notes, some of which I managed to read. The first session went like this. Dr. LeBlanc: "Can you tell me about your picture, Anna?" Anna shrugs, looks away. Dr. LeBlanc: "Who's that in the trees?" Anna whispers, "It's waiting." Dr. LeBlanc: "What's waiting?" Anna covers her mouth, shakes her head. "It followed me out." Anna's nightmares started soon after. She'd wake up screaming, clawing at the sheets, eyes wide and unseeing. Sometimes she'd speak in that strange, guttural language the other Goler children used, a language no one could identify. Other times, she'd just repeat the same phrase, over and over, "Don't let it in. Don't let it in." Her foster parents tried everything. Night lights, lullabies, even sleeping in her room. Nothing helped. The drawings got worse. One showed a little girl standing at the edge of a forest, a black shape looming behind her, its arms reaching out. Another showed a house, windows glowing red, with stick figures inside and the shadow pressing against the glass. Anna's drawings weren't just nightmares, Dr. LeBlanc wrote in her notes. They were warnings. I met Anna once, years later, when she was 8. She was in her third foster home by then, quieter than ever, her hair cut short, her eyes wary. She sat across from me at a kitchen table, coloring in silence. I tried to make small talk, but she barely looked up. Finally, I asked her about the thing in the woods. She stopped coloring. Her hand trembled. "It doesn't like the light," she whispered. "It waits until you're alone. It can look like anything. Sometimes it's a tree. Sometimes it's a person. But you know it's not right. You can feel it watching." I asked her if she'd seen it since leaving the Goler place. She nodded, "Just once. It followed me out," she said. "It follows all of us." Her foster mother told me Anna would sometimes stand at the window for hours, staring into the backyard, lips moving in silent conversation. Once, she found Anna outside at midnight, barefoot in the grass, eyes fixed on the woods at the edge of the property. She said she was listening. The woman told me, voice shaking, listening for the knocking. Anna's caseworker, a man named Paul, tried to reassure everyone. "She's been through hell," he said. "Kids process trauma in strange ways. The drawings, the stories. It's her way of making sense of it." But even he looked uneasy when I showed him one of Anna's latest pictures. A row of stick figures, all with their eyes scratched out, standing in front of a house that looked suspiciously like his own. The line between childlike innocence and something darker was razor thin with Anna. She could be sweet, even playful, in rare moments, singing softly to herself, braiding her doll's hair, giggling at a cartoon. But then her face would go blank, her eyes would fix on a corner of the room, and she'd whisper things that made the air feel colder. She never stayed in one place for long. Foster families grew uneasy, caseworkers burned out, therapists ran out of answers. But the drawings kept coming, each one more disturbing than the last. And always, the thing in the woods. She said it followed her out. I wanted to believe it was just trauma, just a child's way of coping with the unspeakable. I thought Anna was just traumatized, until I saw the photographs. I've seen a lot of evidence in my time. Police reports, autopsy photos, grainy security footage that makes your skin crawl if you stare too long. But nothing prepared me for what I found in Anna's file. Tucked between her therapy notes and a stack of her drawings was a battered envelope, the kind you'd use for birthday cards or old receipts. On the front, in a child's careful handwriting, Don't look. Of course I looked. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them, some faded, some warped by water damage, all taken with a cheap disposable camera. Most were ordinary at first glance. Anna in a backyard, Anna at a birthday party, Anna sitting on a swing, her face half hidden by her hair. But it's what's in the background that makes your stomach drop. In the first photo, Anna stands in the sunlight, squinting at the camera. Behind her, just at the edge of the frame, is a patch of trees. If you look closely, there's a shape among the trunks. Tall, thin, almost human, but not quite. The longer you stare, the more wrong it looks. The arms are too long, the head too narrow, the shadow too deep for the time of day. Another photo, Anna at the kitchen table, coloring. The window behind her shows the backyard, and in the glass, a reflection. Something hunched and dark, with eyes like pinpricks of light. I've shown these to experts. None of them can explain it. It's probably a trick of the light, one said, but his voice wavered. Another just handed the photo back, refusing to meet my eyes. There are symbols, too. In one picture, Anna's bedroom wall is covered in chalk marks. Circles, spirals, jagged lines that seem to move if you look at them too long. In another, a series of stick figures are drawn on the sidewalk in red chalk, all facing away from the house, all with their hands raised as if warding something off. The symbols don't match any language or code I've found, but they show up again and again in Anna's drawings, in the margins of her schoolwork, even scratched into the wood of her bed frame. The most disturbing photo is the last one. It's blurry, taken at night, the flash reflecting off a window. Anna's face is visible in the glass, wide-eyed and pale, but behind her is a silhouette. Tall, impossibly thin, with arms that seem to stretch and bend in ways that defy anatomy. The head is cocked at an unnatural angle, and where the face should be, there's only darkness. I tried to convince myself it was a trick, a double exposure, a smear on the lens. But the feeling in my gut said otherwise. There was something in the background, something that shouldn't be there. I sent copies to a friend who specializes in digital forensics. He ran every test he could think of: contrast, exposure, pixel analysis. There's no sign of tampering, he told me. But there's something off. Like the image is fighting back. Like it doesn't want to be seen. I keep the photos in a locked drawer now. Sometimes, late at night, I take them out and study them, searching for answers. All I find is a growing sense of dread, a certainty that Anna wasn't just seeing things. She was documenting them. She was trying to warn us. But Anna wasn't the only one who saw it. I thought if I could find the other Goler children, now adults, scattered across the province, maybe even the country, I might finally understand what happened. Closure, or at least a pattern. I started with the files, faded addresses, old case numbers, a handful of names that had survived the bureaucratic shuffle. I made a list, picked up the phone, and started dialing. The first number rang and rang, then clicked to voicemail. I left a message, careful not to sound like a reporter or a threat. I'm looking into the Goler case. I just want to talk. You're not alone. No response. The second number was disconnected. The third, a woman answered, her voice wary and thin. I introduced myself, explained why I was calling. There was a long pause, then a click. She hung up. I tried again the next day. This time, a man answered. "Don't call here again," he said, his voice shaking. "Don't look for us. Just let it go." The line went dead. I sent emails, letters, even tried social media. Most messages went unanswered. A few bounced back, addresses no longer valid. The ones who did reply were brief, almost mechanical. "I don't remember anything. I have nothing to say. Please stop." It was like talking to ghosts. Voices from another world, desperate to stay hidden. But then, late one night, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail. The number was blocked. I pressed play, expecting another dead end. Instead, I heard a voice I recognized from old recordings. A boy who'd been 12 when the Goler place was raided, now a man, his voice rough and urgent. "It's still out there," he whispered. You think you're looking for answers, but you're just making it stronger. Every time you dig, every time you remember, it gets closer. Don't call again. Don't look for us. Please. The message ended with a sound I couldn't place, like wind through trees, or maybe just static. I tried calling back, but the number was gone. The next day, I checked the address I had for him. The landlord said he'd moved out overnight, left everything behind. No forwarding address, no explanation. Just gone. I managed to reach one more survivor, a woman living under a different name in a city far from Nova Scotia. She agreed to meet, but when I arrived at the cafe, she was already gone. The waitress handed me a napkin with a single sentence scrawled in shaky handwriting. It follows the ones who remember. They all said the same thing. Don't look for us. Don't ask questions. Don't remember. The hope I'd started with, of finding closure, of piecing together a story that made sense, was replaced by something colder. The reality of ongoing fear, of lives lived in the shadow of something that refused to let go. One survivor vanished the day after I called. Another changed their number, moved across the country, left no trace. The rest retreated into silence, as if speaking about the past might call it back. I started to wonder if the Goler curse was real. Every small town has its stories, but in the valleys and forests around the old Goler homestead, the stories are older, darker, and told in whispers. I started asking questions at the general store, the post office, the faded diner with its cracked vinyl booths. Most people just shook their heads, muttered something about city folks chasing ghosts. But a few, the ones who'd lived there longest, had memories that went back further than the Goler Clan. There's always been something in those woods, said Mr. McInnes, the store owner, his hands trembling as he counted change. My grandfather used to say the trees remember things people forget. Bad things. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You hear things at night. Not animals. Not people either. I dug through the archives at the local library, yellowed newspaper clippings, and brittle microfilm. The stories went back decades. Missing hunters, livestock found mutilated, children who wandered off and were never seen again. In 1947, a headline read, "Boy Lost in Forest. Search called off." The article described a search party that found only a single shoe and a circle of scorched earth deep in the trees. No one ever found the boy. A retired teacher, Mrs. O'Leary, agreed to talk if I promised not to use her name. When I was a girl, we weren't allowed near the Goler land, she said, voice low. My mother said there was something wrong with the soil. Crops wouldn't grow, animals got sick. People said it was just bad luck, but I remember the way the air felt. Heavy, like you were being watched. She paused, twisting a napkin in her hands. Some say it's older than the trees, older than any of us. The stories weren't just about the Golers. There were tales of a shadow that moved between the trees, of lights flickering in the fog, of voices calling your name in the dark. Some said it was a spirit, others a curse. A few whispered about the thing in the woods. The descriptions varied, but the fear was always the same. I found a faded journal entry from 1923, written by a trapper named Eli McKinnon. Saw it again tonight. Tall as a pine, thin as a rail. Eyes like coals. It don't walk right. The dogs won't go near the creek now. I keep the fire burning all night. The next page was torn out. I tried to find rational explanations. Maybe it was just the isolation, the way the mind plays tricks when you're alone in the dark. Maybe the stories were a way to keep children from wandering too far, or to explain away tragedies no one wanted to face. But then I spoke to a local RCMP officer, off the record. He'd been called out to the Goler property more than once, back before the raid. There's something wrong with that place, he said, voice flat. I've seen grown men freeze up, refuse to go past the tree line. I've heard things. Screaming, but not human. Once, I found a deer, gutted and strung up in a way I've never seen before. No tracks, no blood trail. Just left there, like a warning. The Goler children weren't its first victims. The stories stretched back generations, a thread of fear woven through the land itself. Some said the thing in the woods could change its shape, could slip into your dreams, could follow you home if you looked at it too long. Others said it fed on secrets, on shame, on the things people tried to bury. I wanted to believe it was just folklore, just the collective imagination of a place that had seen too much pain. But the more I listened, the more I read, the more I felt the weight of something watching, waiting. The line between rational and inexplicable blurred, and I realized I was no longer just an observer. I was part of the story now. I had to see it for myself. I've always told myself I am not the kind of person who goes looking for trouble. But curiosity is a disease, and I've never been good at ignoring symptoms. So, on a gray morning that felt colder than it should have, I parked my car at the edge of the old Goler property, slung a backpack over my shoulder, and stepped into the woods. I brought a flashlight, a recorder, and a healthy sense of dread. I left my common sense in the glove compartment. The forest was beautiful at first. Sunlight filtered through the branches in thin, golden ribbons. The air was sharp with the scent of pine and damp earth. Birds called to each other, unseen, and somewhere in the distance, water trickled over rocks. For a moment, I almost forgot why I was there. Almost. I followed the path the rescuers had taken all those years ago, or what was left of it. A faint trail through the undergrowth, marked by broken branches and the occasional scrap of rusted metal. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. The birds fell silent. The air grew heavy, thick with the kind of stillness that makes you want to whisper, just in case something is listening. I tried to keep my mind busy, narrating into my recorder. Day 1, I said, my voice too loud in the hush. No sign of ghosts, monsters, or generational curses. Just a lot of mud and a growing sense of regret. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. I kept walking. The trees grew closer together, their trunks twisted and scarred. Moss hung from the branches like old lace. I found the remains of a fence, half swallowed by the earth, and a clearing where the grass grew in strange, swirling patterns. I knelt to take a photo, but my phone glitched. Screen flickering, camera refusing to focus. I told myself it was just the cold, or maybe a bad battery. I kept moving. I found the creek Anna had drawn so many times, its water black and slow. On the far bank, something had scratched symbols into the mud. Circles, spirals, jagged lines. I recognized them from Anna's drawings, from the photographs. I pressed record again, my hand shaking. If anyone finds this, I'm at the creek. There are markings here. They look fresh. I tried to make a joke. Something about Blair Witch and bad life choices. But the words stuck in my throat. The woods felt closer now, the air colder. I heard something move behind me, a soft rustle, like footsteps in the leaves. I spun around, flashlight beams slicing through the shadows. Nothing. Just trees, just silence. I pressed on, heart pounding. The path twisted, doubled back on itself. I found a child's shoe, half buried in the mud, the laces rotted away. I found a length of rope, knotted and frayed. I found a tree with deep gouges in the bark, as if something had tried to claw its way out. Or in. I started talking to myself, just to fill the silence. This is fine, I muttered. Totally normal. Just a walk in the woods, surrounded by decades of trauma and a possible supernatural entity. No big deal. I laughed again, and this time it sounded almost real. The sun slipped behind the clouds, and the light turned gray and uncertain. I checked my watch. Only an hour had passed, but it felt like days. I tried to retrace my steps, but the path was gone. The trees all looked the same. My phone had no signal. My flashlight flickered, then steadied. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, a shadow moving between the trees. But then it moved again, closer this time. Tall, impossibly thin, arms too long, head cocked at an angle that made my stomach twist. It didn't walk so much as glide, silent and smooth, its outline blurring at the edges. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It stopped at the edge of the clearing, watching. I couldn't see its face. Just darkness, deeper than shadow, eyes like holes in the world. I fumbled for my recorder, pressed the button, whispered, "I see it. It's real. Oh God, it's real." The thing tilted its head, as if listening. The woods pressed in, the silence so thick I could hear my own heartbeat. I don't remember running, but suddenly I was moving. Branches whipping at my face, roots grabbing at my feet. I stumbled, fell, scrambled up again. I didn't look back. I burst out of the trees, gasping, mud streaked up my arms, blood on my hands from where I'd clawed at the undergrowth. My car was there, waiting, the only thing in the world that made sense. I fumbled with the keys, locked the doors, sat shaking until the sun started to set. What I found wasn't human. I barely made it out. But I wasn't alone. I used to think the Goler tragedy was the story, that the horror began and ended with a family, a shack, a secret buried in the woods. But the truth is uglier, older, and far more patient than I ever imagined. The thing in the woods, whatever it is, didn't start with the Golers. It didn't end with them, either. The Goler Clan was just another chapter, another wound in a landscape that's been bleeding for generations. I spent weeks piecing it together, sleepless nights with Anna's drawings spread across my desk, the photographs locked away but never far from my mind. I read every file, every faded news clipping, every desperate letter from survivors who begged to be forgotten. The pattern was always the same: isolation, shame, secrets that festered in the dark. And always, always the thing in the woods. Feeding, waiting, growing stronger with every whispered lie and every unspoken truth. It's not just the Goler Clan. It's anyone who looks too closely. Anyone who tries to drag the truth into the light. The entity, call it a curse, a spirit, a parasite, thrives on secrecy and pain. It slips into the cracks of broken families, feeds on the guilt that no one wants to name. It's the shadow at the edge of every tragedy, the cold breath on the back of your neck when you remember something you wish you could forget. I started to notice things. The way my phone would ring at odd hours, no one on the other end but the sound of wind through trees. The way my dreams twisted, filled with voices calling my name, with eyes watching from the darkness. I found symbols scratched into my own notebook, circles and spirals I didn't remember drawing. I stopped sleeping. I stopped answering calls. I started to wonder if I'd ever really left those woods. And then I realized I'd become part of the story. By digging, by listening, by sharing what I'd found, I'd invited it in. And now, so have you. That's the real horror, isn't it? The cost of knowing. We want to believe that shining a light on the darkness will make it go away, that telling the truth will set us free. But some things feed on attention, on curiosity, on the desperate need to understand. The more you look, the closer it gets. The more you remember, the harder it is to forget. I wish I could tell you there's a way to stop it, that if you burn the files, erase the tapes, forget the names, it'll leave you alone. But I can't. All I can do is warn you. By listening, you've invited it in. Maybe you'll feel it tonight, a chill in the room, a shadow that lingers just a little too long. Maybe you'll dream of the woods, of something waiting just beyond the trees. I wish I could stop here, but there's one last thing you need to know. If you've made it this far, you're braver, or maybe more reckless than most. I wish I could say that closing this file means the story is over, that you can turn off your screen and leave the darkness behind. But you know better now, don't you? The comfort of the screen is just an illusion. The unease that lingers, the chill at the back of your neck, that's real. That's what stays. There are more files, more stories, more names scratched out, more voices lost to the woods. I've seen them, stacked in boxes, gathering dust, each one a warning that curiosity isn't always harmless. Some nights, I hear the wind outside my window and wonder if it's carrying secrets or if it's just waiting for someone else to listen. If you've seen the signs, shadows that move where they shouldn't, dreams that feel too real, symbols you can't explain. Let me know in the comments. Maybe you're not alone. Maybe none of us are. This isn't the end. It never is. The darkness is still out there, patient and hungry, waiting for the next story, the next secret, the next person who can't help but look a little too closely. Until next time, keep your lights on and don't look too closely.